So, back for round 2. So, we're only on track 2, still got another 2. So let's go to track 4. I mean, sorry, 3. So, I don't know why I muted all in. So, I'm going to show you this first track. There's no... Is there a... Nope. No neighbor. So, this first track sounds like this. Which is a nasty sound, which is what I like about it. I don't know if... I think I got this off the compact flat. Yeah, see, it's a beat. A kinda shitty beat as well, to be honest. It's fine, but it's not great. But I like what I've done with it. So what I have done with it, I don't think I actually... I know I did slice it. So if I go out, there's a lot of slices. In fact, I've sliced every single... 64 slices of American cheese. No, 64 slices across the timeline. And each slice is doing something slightly different. And I've also... Well, it's not doing something slightly different. It's each one is in succession, I'm pretty sure. So it is actually the beat. It's just slowed down heaps. I don't really know how I did that. I've got the rate. No, I guess... Oh, because the original beat's a 135. What's wrong with me? I'm an idiot. So it's just like massively slowed down. This is... No filtering. No compression. This is a very raw sound. Way more raw than I normally do. Normally my sounds are so fucking... They don't sound nothing like they sound like originally. So that one, obviously, I was getting lazy or something. So I like that sound, but it only really works with the rest of it. So I often like to use the Octatrack as a drum machine, or as I often describe it, kind of just like a rhythm machine. Because while the machine drum and other drum machines like it, or similar to it, are focusing like very much on like this is the kick drum and this is the snare drum, and you can tweak them a lot. It's still going to like sort of be this is the kick drum and stuff. Whereas on the Octatrack, you know, the world is totally your oyster, and you know this sound is made from the same sample. No, sorry, it's not. It's made from a different sample, but it's still off the SD card, and the original sample is this. So it's a pretty crunchy sample, but I actually think part of the reason it sounds like that... Oh no. No, it just sounds like that. Again, maybe I'm getting lazy. I obviously am not affecting my samples in a way the way I deem necessary. So... That's a pretty nice beat. I quite like that just on its own, but I like way more what I've done with it. Yeah, so this one's been sliced up as well, but I have not just run it across the timeline. I've sliced them up, and then I've randomly assorted them across. So each one of these has a different slice, at least within the pages here. Each of the 16 steps. So I'm pretty sure I've done some messed up stuff. Just a bit of filtering. There we go. Oh, that's messy. So, so that's that sound. I think it's cool. Together, those two sound like this. Which is pretty cool. The next sound. Big fat ass kick drum. Which I think actually sounds super fucking rad. I've got a lot of compression on this one, and like we've already discussed, the compressor on this thing, holy shit. So I just, again, to demonstrate, turn the gain right down, turn the mix right down. I probably should have just turned the mix right down, and you get this. I mean, we're in like, you know, 70s prog rock drum kit territory here. And then, see, that's more like it. Don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with a bit of 70s prog rock, but come on. That's pretty sweet. So I don't actually have much else going on that track. Pretty simple again. This track is obviously just a generally quite simple. Another kick. And this one, sort of to go along with this one. But this track is actually slightly more interesting in that I've actually done some parameter locks on this one. So this one changed basically the decay and the release on it effectively, or the hold, which is not decay, but anyway. So it gives it a real short decay, and then I don't think there's anything else actually. Yeah, just that. So nothing special, but I think it gives it some spice. So I think that's a fucking kick-ass beat. And I don't mind saying so. I think that sounds rad. So that's that. That's basically the beat of the track. Like, I'm pretty sure that's all the elements of it. Over here I've got a sample, which is kind of the crux of this track in a lot of ways, which I recorded from the Roland System one. And it is actually fairly faithfully recorded from it. There is some... I did chop it up a little bit, but that's more... that's sort of for technical reasons in terms of placing it across the timeline and getting a certain amount of like filtering options, which I'll discuss later. But this sound is very similar to what was coming out of the System 1, and it sounds like this. Now you can hear some like stepping in there. And that's because I've actually chopped up the sound into a whole bunch of slices, and the reason I did that is so I could do things like this. Is it on this track? I think it's this one. No, it's not that one. That's the one. So, on this scene, I have messed with the hold and the release again, giving it a short decay so you get the stuttery thing. And that's the only way you can do that in this way is chopping up the samples into slices. And then in this case they're chopped up into, I guess, 32 slices. So they're slightly longer slices, and I can actually show, I can play them across the timeline like. Good times. But yeah, that's how it is, and each of these is a different slice, and yeah, it just allows you to do fun things like that. There are other things it allows you to do as well in terms of like with bass lines, like giving a bass line that you've recorded an extra punch by giving it like a filter envelope over it, which you then have to chop up the slices, the whole bass line into slices so that each note is its own filter envelope that's associated with it, basically. Otherwise, if you have just a long sample, like 4 bars or something, and it's a whole bass line, and you try to put a filter envelope on it, it will just do like a little bit right at the beginning, and then just the rest of the sample will be completely filtered or off or whatever. Not what you want, obviously. So there's some fiddly stuff on the Octatrack that you just kind of have to get used to, like the way it works and stuff. And a lot of people, whenever I talk to them about using the Octatrack, especially online, a lot of people say, like, why can't I do this thing with it and stuff? And it's like, look, that's just not what it does. Like, it does these things, you know, it doesn't do everything, and it's never going to be the be all end all. But you got to, with all of Elektron stuff, with all hardware in general, with all fucking music equipment, you have to work to the fucking strengths of the gear. Like, not everything is going to be everything, and if you want everything to be everything, you're probably going to end up with, like, you know, a workstation situation from the 80s. Not what we want. So I really love this sound a lot. I think it's a beautiful sound. It's quite crunchy as well, and it's got that stuttering on it, which I like. Like, the original sound on the System 1 definitely sounded cleaner and nicer in some ways, but I kind of like what's happened to it here. So what's going on really is no filtering, none at all actually, no delay. That is just the raw sound. Must have. Oh yeah, I've turned up the volume a little bit. Yeah, it's being pushed a little bit, but yeah, nothing else going on that. That's weird. So the next track. Now this one I also think sounds super nice. I'm actually pretty sure I started this track with this sample. I was messing around on my Ensoniq VFX SD, an old 80s digital synth. It's got some nice sort of like sine wave based Rhodes, which I made on it years ago, which I called VFX Rhodes. And yeah, so I used that. I did just some basic playing, and then I just looped it. The original, the original sample. It sounds super distorted. I mean, well, not super distorted, but it's quite warm and nice, really, but it's got some distortion on it, and the original sound does not. It's just that when you sample with the Octatrack, you've really got to give it a hot signal, and sometimes it's difficult to do that when you're trying to route things through other things and everything. So, you know, the signal path from my VFX to the Octatrack, not the best, which is why you can't even see the sample unless I... Which one is it? There, see, unless I amplify it in the, like, artificially. So, and also it's like completely, like 24 is the maximum gain you can give a sample in this screen. You can amplify it more later, but the signal path on the Octatrack means that beyond a certain point, once the sound starts distorting, the only way you can increase the volume without it distorting is with the level meter here. And that already starts fairly high, so you don't have a whole lot of wiggle room there. But the good thing about the Octatrack is sometimes when you're using it in the studio, it might not sound as loud, but when you are playing live, this thing is massive. It just sounds so huge. All of the Elektron stuff does. It just sounds, I mean, like, I guess you could argue that of so much hardware, but I think it's worth pointing out that in the past, using the Octatrack, I've definitely come across situations where I'm trying to push it as hard as it can go because I'm just not experiencing the like level of loudness I think I should be, and then I've taken it out live and it sounded like complete shit because I've compressed it to fuck. So yeah, I think it's better to give it some gain on the outs, like when you put it into a mixer or into your audio interface or something like that, than actually putting the gain stages in here, unless you want that level of gritty gain. So that's a nice sound. This whole thing together sounds like this. Which sounds good, I think, but it sounds way better when you introduce the bass line, once again, from the Roland System 1. So yeah, sorry, getting a little bit carried away. So I think that's probably a good rundown of that track. There is some stuff on the A4. Maybe I'll just quickly show that. So I'll mute all of these tracks again. I'll leave the bass line going so you give it some context. I'll go to the next one. So what have we got here? On track 1. That's still the System 1 bass. That's not the A4, so I guess there's nothing on track 1. Nothing on track 2. There's something. Another bass line, similar to the other bass line. So that's a pretty nice sound. I actually have not set up any macros on this one. I think when I was playing live I was just tweaking through the actual synth and then just not saving the kit after. So, but you know, a few filter sweeps won't hurt, so. That's a cool sound, but then the other sound is this one. Once again, characteristic A4 sound. I think it's probably even the same patch. I was probably making these tracks at the same time. I mean, it helps. I think that the melody is nice, but like, shit, man, that is a really nice sound. Like, just take the filter envelope back a bit. Some resonance. Give it some chorus. Turn that off actually. Maybe give it a sub. Oscillator 1. Down, 2 octaves down. Yeah, it's a great sounding synth. I don't think that there's any denying that. So that's all that there is from that. So I guess I should probably just show you what all of that sounds like. All together, you get something like this. So, you know, like, I don't always bring everything that is, I don't always bring everything that I've got on each track in at once. Like, I slowly fade things in. Like, I usually like to start with some rhythmic stuff. I bring in some of the more paddy sounds. Like, I just bring in things track by track. There's definitely, like, a structure to these tracks when I write them. And when I write them in the studio using this stuff, they come out a certain way. I sort of build on them, and the parts that come later, they're always going to be introduced. They're almost always going to be introduced later when I'm playing them again live, because that's how I wrote them. And it just sort of makes sense to do it that way. There's sort of like a chronology to it. So yeah, just so you know, not all my tracks sound like that busy when I'm playing them live, because there's like everything playing at once. So I'm just gonna mute all of these again, including the MIDI track, and then I'm going to go to this next track, which is part of the same song, kind of, but it's kind of what evolved out of it, like what I turned it into when I was just fucking around. So the first track is the same buzzer sound from before. I've just done different things with it. So, more rhythmic stuff. Yeah, I didn't really do much else with it. Yeah, so, that's that. That's cool. What else have we got? Let's see. That's more like it. Fuck yeah, motherfuckers. Some good shit. So, listen to that. Listen to that fucking bass. Listen to that. Ridiculous. Absolutely fucking ridiculous. Like, if I take that using a scene, if I take that compressor down, what is, it's not even recognizable. It's not even the same sound at all. Halfway even. All the way. Fucking hell. Gets me every time. I'm just gonna remove them. The other thing is I'm pretty sure on this track, yeah, on this one, I'll turn the gain on the compressor on this particular step to absolute maximum, I'm pretty sure, nearly maximum. And I've also turned the pitch right down on it, so it's giving this like really crunchy, farty, to be honest, sound, but it's awesome, hey? I've done it on this step as well, but less so. So it's kind of like a gradual thing, so these 3 steps over here is like, you know, it's a cool thing. I really like that. So that's that track. And on this one, just like a kick, but with everything else. What have we got on here? This is one of my favorite things to do. I mean, it's so obvious, but it's one of the favorite things to do on this machine. Set up a scene where every single track has the rate turned right to the other way, so everything is reversed. The only way this works actually is if these tracks aren't set to time stretch. Like if they're all set to the rate does pitch rather than time stretch. Like as you can see, you can do either. Because you know then it doesn't do the same thing. But on this one I haven't even done it all the way. Like all the way to this side. This particular sound does something slightly different. So. It just does a fucked up thing, which is cool actually. But this sound, like you can almost not tell unless you put it in the middle. Like that's nothing. That's barely. It's like just a filter affecting something really. Like because the sound itself is not even really moving. It starts to speed up a bit, but in the opposite, it's starting to speed up in reverse. So that one's just some weird shit, but like it really shines on kick drums. Like it's on this one, yeah, it's definitely on that one. I mean, that's pretty rad. You can get some nice in-between textures. So yeah, and over here I've done some other messed up things with these sounds. So on this one, so a lot of P-locks happening here. These ones, yeah, so pitch, more pitch. So that's cool. And then also. That's that same piano sound from before, and this one is that same sound, but they've just been altered dramatically. Like this one, a lot of pitch changes happening on it. That's all actually. It just sounds totally different because of the pitch. Anyway. So all of that together, Nothing on that one. Sounds like this. I've also got a bass line in there, which sounds like this. I think that's cool. The A4, I think it does have some stuff going on this one. It's starting to get a bit dark. Maybe. Anyway, so over here, what do we got over here? I might mute all of this again, except for the bass line. Strange. All right. Oh, I remember. Sorry, I totally forgot. There is a massive sound on this track. It's over 3 tracks. I've got each of these 3 tracks doing slightly different things, but they're all contributing to the same sound. And it's, I'm going to turn that bass line off, and it's this sound, and I've got a filter that brings it all in. So that's a fat sound, and I'm going to unmute everything now, and you're going to hear everything. So that's that track. That's a nice one. I sort of just fucked around with that one yesterday, just like making it out of the other track. So I'm going to move on to the next one, but I'm just going to stop the recording quickly because my phone is shit. Okay, so we're back, and we're on the last track of this little short set. So the first track on this one. Here's this. Is there a neighbor? There's totally a neighbor. Just by the way, for anybody who doesn't know, neighbor tracks are like you've got your whole bunch of different methods of sample playback, which static flex and stuff, but also sometimes you just want to have like a sample playing on this one, and then you only get 2 effects per track, and sometimes you want to have way more effects than that. So a neighbor allows you to do that, in which this track doesn't have any sample associated with it. It just feeds that track into this one, and you get some crazily complex routings going on. So if you just have one sample and you've got 3 tracks affecting it, because it only works on each side. Like that one can only feed into all of these 3. It can't then feed into these. And likewise on this side, these ones can't feed into them or anything. It's always downward, and not across the little buttons. So yeah, I often use neighbors because I often don't need to use all like 8 tracks, or 7 in this case, because I always use the channel 8 as a master track. So yeah, that's what a neighbor is. Oh, I love those clicks. That's great. So that's a cool sound. I don't remember how I made this one or where it came from. What does it sound like? Okay, I'm pretty sure that came off the compact flash as well. But it does not sound like that anymore. No, it does not. So that's that track. Another neighbor. Oh! No! No, sorry. I thought this was a different track. So that's a clap, as I'm sure you can probably tell. It's got heaps of delay and reverb on it. And also, it's doing some... The green usually means that I've done some live tweaking and recorded it in. Like they're just parameter locks, but when they're green and they don't fall on a trig like a red, the red are just that's where a sample is played. These samples are not played, just parameters are changed. Parameters can also be changed on the red ones. It's just that if there's a sample playing from, if that is a sample trig, then anything that is happening on that you won't be able to see just from the color of it. You'll have to actually hold down on it and look at what's happening on it. On this one, nothing's happening on it. But on these ones, shit's happening. See? The delay's being changed around. So I was obviously messing around with the delay time. It's a cool sound. And then on here, there's just a dark reverb, some filtering. And this one's just got a compressor. Does that compressor got any gain? No, it doesn't, but it's got some still compression going on. But what happens if you turn the gain up? Oh! Gets messy real fast. So that's that one. What do we got over here? Another neighbor. Huge kick drum. Massive reverb. Nothing on that one? Nothing on that one. So this is just my kick. This is my beat for this track. It's a really minimal beat. This just came off the SD card. It's this CS kick. I've actually used it a few times. It's just got a nice boomy quality to it, especially when you're fucking around with EQs and compressors, as I've done. Just to demonstrate again, I'm gonna just turn this compressor right off. That's what no compression sounds like, but I do still have a reverb on it. No filtering, but a reverb, and I've also still got some EQ going on it. So if I turn the EQ off completely as well, by changing the gain to 0, and if I turn the reverb off as well, by turning the mix right down, you just got this. You know, that's alright, I guess. But it does actually, I've just noticed it, or remembered and noticed, it has some parameter locks going on. So I've got some, this one, the gain is being turned up on that one. And also, I believe the pitch, maybe? Yeah, on this one is being changed. So you get that kind of, the bass-liney kick drum sound, which sounds huge when it's all affected like that. Oh god, fucking killer. Actually, it's part of the reason I really want to get a Volca kick, is for these kind of sounds. I'm just gonna clear that scene. So that's the track. There's really like nothing else to this one really, except for on the A4 and on the System 1. But all of this together sounds like this. Which is nice and atmospheric, very spacey. But with the bass line, I think it comes to life a little bit more. So that sounds cool. I should take a minute just to talk about the MIDI sequencer on the Octatrack. It's really awesome. Like it does have some limitations, but I don't think that they really matter, especially when you're controlling monosynths, and especially just when you're dealing with like the possibilities in terms of like parameter locking synths that have never been parameter locked before. Like the other day, I parameter locked my Ensoniq TS12 synth I mapped some of the controls, or some of the LFO stuff, and some of the effects on it, like the flanger speed and stuff like that, to like a pressure and mod wheel, and then I sent it into here. And suffice to say, once I started doing things with that, with the pressure and the aftertouch, or the aftertouch and the mod wheel, and then doing it across the trigs, you know, like the TS12 was never meant to do that, but it totally does it, and it's really awesome. So yeah, that's the track basically. I'm just going to, though, show you what the A4 does on this track. Keep the bass line in there just to see. So that's the bass line. What do we got up here? Arpeggio. Very nice sound, actually. So that's cool. Pretty sure these two don't have sounds on them. That's just the bass line. I'll turn that off. No, they don't have any sounds associated with them. I'm just using 2 tracks on this one. So this one's doing this sound. It's kind of like a slightly Middle Eastern vibe to some of these note progressions, melodies, I should say. The nice thing about these 2 arpeggios working together, or these 2 sequences working together, so I've got a delay control here as well. Get some really cool rhythmic sounds like that. So you should just hear all of this all together, all at once, and see what this shit sounds like. So I think I've probably demonstrated my point enough. So yeah, if you want to see the performance I did, it's on YouTube as well. I'm going to create these as a playlist. So yeah, I made a playlist of all of these tracks. They'll all be in order, so you can watch them that way. It'd be super easy. Or you can watch them individually. I mean, it's going to be pretty long, so you might not want to watch it all at once. But yeah, enjoy. One more thing. I realized that the lighting doesn't always work out for me in this video, and a few times throughout the focus of my camera sort of goes off the screen and the screen just becomes this blinding white light. Nothing I can do about that, unfortunately, now. Like, that's just how it is. But, you know, as I was making the video, the lighting in my room progressively got worse as the day went on, so what are you going to do? Nothing I can do about that. Also, like, I don't know, stabilization of my camera holding, not always the best. Deal with it, motherfuckers. Anyway, enjoy my video.